Ag Life, presented by ADM Lloydminster.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to our agriculture show, Ag Life. It's episode number 17. I'm Gerard Lampow, and on the menu, a look at beef's environmental footprint. And just in case you didn't hear about that, it's down. Yeah, we bring you some more details on the series Real Farm Lives, so that will continue. And added to that, we'll have a chat with one of the organizers behind that online series. But first, let's have a look at our community events. Let's roll out the events calendar. And remember, if you want to get in on this part of the show, email me, glampow@newcap.ca. Let's have a look at upcoming events. And still to come, a conversation with Pierre Petelle, one of the organizers of the series Real Farm Lives. Do stay with us.
This segment of Ag Life is brought to you by Webb's Machinery. Webb's Machinery, your New Holland dealer in Vermilion, Vegreville, and Lamont.
Welcome back. I certainly hope you're enjoying the segment Real Farm Lives. I had a chance to chat with Pierre Petelle to find out some more about allowing farmers to tell their own stories, giving them the microphone, so to speak. Let's have a look.
Hi, I'm Madison Inglot, and this is my dad, Norm. We farm 5 miles south of Momart, which is an hour southeast of Regina. We are part of the family farm, which my grandma and grandpa started.
Allowing farmers to tell their own stories is key to the series Real Farm Lives. The online documentary features 3 farm families and seeks to bridge the gap between the city and the farm.
I'm a 7th generation farmer. We live on our farm with my mom and dad, my wife Rachel, and my 3 kids, Sean, Melise, and Sadie.
Spearheading the effort is CropLife Canada. They are the trade association for the companies providing crop protection tools as well as the seed and related technologies.
So Real Farm Lives is a documentary-style web series, and it gives Canadian families a glimpse into the daily lives of real farm families. There'll be 6 episodes featuring 3 families from Ontario and Saskatchewan.
Giving farmers the lead in telling their own story provides an amazing learning dynamic.
This is an opportunity really for the farmers to tell their story, like you said, and it's not, there was no script ahead of time. This was really just a conversation, and you see the excitement and the pride come out in each of the discussions with the family.
Another question was the selection of these families, as Canadian farmers do a tremendous job growing the food that feeds the world.
Well, we wanted families, obviously, that had an interesting story, but we wanted them to be sort of your average farm families. We looked at families that embodied modern farming, so that used newer technologies, that had unique personalities and interesting stories to tell. And I think the 3 families clearly fit that bill.
I'm Shane Ardeel. I'm here on the farm with my son Kyle and my lead work hand Kemroy, and we are here in Clarksburg, Ontario.
The series also seeks to reconnect consumers with the story of how our food gets on the table.
We know that families in Canada are further removed from agriculture than ever before, and we're hoping that this will help build a connection, a bridge between non-farm families and the families that produce our food.
What are we doing today, Luke?
Maybe spray a bit?
I guess we should, get going on that.
And when we continue, we'll check out our visit to the RENWICK'S of Ontario with Real Farm Lives. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and it's time for part 2 of our visit with the RENWICK'S of Ontario. So courtesy of Real Farm Lives, let's once again meet the RENWICK'S.
I'm Chris Renwick. This is my dad, Tom. We're grain and oilseed farmers just outside of Wheatley, Ontario in Chatham, Kent. I'm a 7th generation farmer. We live on our farm with my mom and dad, my wife, Rachel, and my 3 kids, Sean, Melise, and Sadie.
My ancestors came here almost 200 years ago in 1820. We're looking forward to an anniversary coming up, and we're hoping that the generations continue to follow along behind us, and maybe in another 200 years we'll make it to 400.
I've been working with my dad probably since I was 5 or 6 years old, out in the field. Sitting behind the seat in the tractor was probably where I spent a lot of time when I was younger. About the age of 14 or 15, was able to start doing some of the work out in the field. And it's slowly progressed over the last 25 years. Working with family always has its challenges. Sometimes everybody gets a little emotional and a little upset. And the next time you might be sitting having a birthday party at the table.
In the last 50 years, the changes have been going from 300 acres to 750 acres, from a combine with a 12-foot head on it to a combine with a 30-foot head on it. You can't do it with the same machinery you did years ago. Everything is bigger. We can get a lot of work done in a short period of time.
So usually in the morning, we try to talk about what's going to happen that day to see whether there's things that we need to get done. Morning.
Howdy doody. How are you?
Good. I just thought I'd get the combine out here and take a look at a few things before we get into bean season here in the next couple months. We finished our wheat harvest in July, looking forward to soybeans in early October, and followed by our grain corn coming off in late October to early November. We got a good rain last night, and that's the second one we've had in the last few days, so maybe we should go take a look at the beans over there.
Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day, though, to do something.
Some of the time we need to go out and check the fields and see what's going on. I like to take my son Sean with me when I get a chance. Okay, Sean, we're going to go over and take a look at these beans over here. Grandpa and I were talking about maybe we should put a fungicide on these since we've been getting some rain the last few days. He seems to be like a sponge right now, so I want to make sure that I'm giving him accurate information and making sure that he's up to speed, because he's only 8 right now, but I can see in his future that he's very interested in what goes on the farm, and he wants to follow me around a lot.
One of these days, you're going to have to check all this out by yourself and make the decisions on it.
Hopefully we don't find too much over there that we have to look after. Looks like our weed control this spring worked real well. The products that we use seem to have kept the weeds down the way we want them, so that's a good start. Current day-to-day challenges are resistant weeds are becoming more and more of a problem. We're having to fight those weeds more often, and some of the products that we were using before, where we could use them on every acre, have had to be changed because those weeds are being more and more of a challenge all the time.
The beans get taller, there's more canopy, and airflow through the crop just isn't there anymore. So fungicides become a priority.
We want to make sure we protect this crop because it looks like it's a good crop coming, and we've been getting some rain here the last couple of days that maybe we weren't expecting, so we want to make sure that we keep it protected as much as we can. Okay, let's head out.
Yep.
Did you get that jug of fungicide?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay. Well, let's get some water in this tank and we'll get it ready to go. Okay, let's go get that fungicide application on this bean field. These beans are looking good over here. So I'm just thinking maybe we should put on about 20 gallons of water per acre. We should maybe put the water volume up just a little bit.
Yeah.
We did a lot of tilling the soil before to try to control the weeds, and now with the introduction of more herbicides in the market, we're able to spray the field, not have to work it, and now the planters today are giving us the opportunity to do that in one pass. Cuts down on erosion, we're able to keep the soil structure better, we're able to keep the organisms in the soil working better, we're able to not use as much diesel fuel, and time.
What are these lines from?
I think they're from last year's planter tracks going through. I came out here the other day to take a look, and I noticed that we got quite a chunk that we lost this year. So it looks like we're losing another few feet. So last year when we planted, we were able to plant right up to the side here, and now we had to back up. In some cases, we lose maybe a couple feet every year, or sometimes we lose a big chunk, and in this case, it looks like we've lost a big chunk. Unfortunately, the shoreline erosion is something that we can't do a whole lot about. We would like to be able to control that, but cost-wise and regulations would probably impede us from being able to do those types of things that we need to do to keep it under control.
We lose property every year. That doesn't make us any money. So we got to be very careful as what we do on our soil erosion.
Sometimes the water crashing against the bank and on the bottom, and the cliff dropping off of that. Sometimes they say that it's more the moisture that's coming out of the hill from the gravel ridge and running underneath that's actually taking the moisture and pulling it out. So somehow we need to try to do what we can to make sure that the next 200 years is able to farm here on our family farm.
When my ancestors got here, they decided to put a cemetery on that. There's only a few along on this area that are family cemeteries, that only the families are buried there. So I've seen 5 generations on this farm. My grandfather, my dad, myself, Chris, Sean, and the girls. And that's something for 5 generations that I can say I've seen living right here.
My grandfather lived to be 91, and he was buried there in 2015. So about 3 years ago, he passed away. And when he passed away, we brought the funeral coach through the yard here and kind of did the little horseshoe and in front of the barn, and we did a little stop in front and brought him over to the cemetery. And the funeral director said to us he didn't think he'd ever brought anyone home before. And I guess at some point, I'll probably be brought home. I remember when my grandfather moved to Leamington, he said to me, he said, you know, you don't live somewhere for 86 years and just get up and leave. And that's something that I hope happens to me. I hope that one of my children decide that they want to farm, whether it's my son or one of my 2 daughters that want to look after the farm when it's their turn. I hope that they can continue to enjoy what it's like to be able to be on the farm. People ask us sometimes why we farm. It's one of those things that being exposed to it at a young age is probably a big part of it, but they always say that if you don't enjoy farming, you're probably not going to stay with it. If you don't enjoy being out there in the field, watching the crop grow, it's probably not for you. But we try to do our best to make sure that we're producing a clean, healthy product that goes to the world to feed the world.
There you have it, courtesy Real Farm Lives, our second visit with the RENWICK'S of Ontario. Lots of challenges there on their property regarding farming and such, and we'll have another farming family as we continue with Real Farm Lives in our next episode. Still to come then, beef's environmental footprint is down. We got some more information on that. Ag Life continues after this break.
Ag Life, presented by ADM Lloydminster.
And for many of us, we're all good steak lovers. As part of Ag Life, though, we have some honest conversation about where our food comes from, where agriculture is at, and where it's going. This one is courtesy the Beef Cattle Research Council. Let's get some more information on beef's environmental footprint.
The new buzzword is sustainability, and I would argue that as farmers and food producers, we've been sustainable for generations, if not centuries, because the goal is to leave our land base in as good a shape or better for the next generation than what we received it.
My husband and I have been raising beef for the last 40 years, and I think it's important to recognize that people are more aware of what they're eating. We've had many conversations about healthy food, and healthy food is raised on healthy land.
The public has an increasing interest in the environmental impact of the cattle industry, just like they have an increasing interest in the environmental impact of just about every aspect of food production. It's important to do research on things like this simply because the questions are out there, and having reliable, honest, fact-based answers for this is hugely important.
We looked at the carbon footprint of beef production in Canada, and we compared that from 1981 to 2011. We found that the industry had increased the efficiency to the point of about 15% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We produced the same amount of beef with about 25% less land. So there's a lot of efficiencies that have taken place over that period of time, which really represent the adoption of science by the industry, the changes in management practices by the industry, and improvements in crop production and yield by the industry.
Most of our land is native grassland that's never been cultivated. Our cattle do graze all winter, most winters. We consider ourselves cattle people, but the product is largely grass, and we're trying to turn that into something of value. And of course, as science progresses, we can see more and more things that we do that can be harmful, or things that can be beneficial if we're smarter about it. We live off this land, and if we destroy it, it destroys our living and ourselves.
The biggest myths in beef production related to the environmental impact for me would be the perception that we as farmers are still farming in the 1950s. We're not. Genetics have improved. The quality of the feeds that we use, how we feed them and deliver them to the livestock has changed. We're much more efficient than we were 50 years ago. We're much more efficient than we were 5 years ago. Here in our farm, we have a nutrient management plan which we follow through on our manure production and application on our crop side. Ontario has an environmental farm plan. We keep that up to date, as well as technologies in our feeding program that can help produce less manure and yet still produce efficient, high-quality beef.
The changes that we've made here started as soon as we bought the place, whether it would be to change the rotational grazing or to provide clear, clean water sources. Off-site water always. Does it create some challenges? Absolutely. Does it cost money? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Feed efficiency and sustainability are very tightly linked. Of course, feed costs are the #1 cost of production for producers, and it uses a lot of inputs as well. By trying to maximize your feed efficiency and use those feed nutrients to the best of the ability for the animal, you can see an overall improvement in sustainability and overall productivity in operation. There's certainly some simple things producers can do. For example, in the feedlot, most producers will know their cost of gain. Another example would be from the cow-calf area, just keeping track of the amount of weight that a cow would wean in a year is a measure of efficiency. Keeping track of those type of things will enable a producer to make some changes. We need to make sure that we're doing the most we can with the land we have available and continue to increase beef production with the limited resources that we do have.
I think it's important to stay up on technology and research because it's always leading us to a more profitable industry and at the same time using less resources to do it. Environmental stewardship plays a big part in our operation here. We tie our beef operation in with our cash crop enterprise here. We do soil sampling of all our land every 3 years. We do manure sampling of our manure, and we match that up when we're applying manure. So our land doesn't get too many of the nutrients which could cause nutrient runoff.
At this particular farm, what we're doing that's important is we're fencing our cattle out of our swamps and creeks, so we're not contaminating the water supply, and we're keeping them out of the bush as well for the longevity of the bush. Another initiative that we want to do here is we want to rotationally graze our cattle on this farm, so we're putting more cattle on less acres, more efficient, but also what we're doing is we're giving the land a rest as well so that it can rejuvenate itself before we put cattle back on.
Grasslands that are not grazed are not healthy. Grazing encourages plant growth. It can increase the level of biodiversity within those grazing systems. It can also reduce the amount of invasive plants that can enter in that. All of that, though, does involve having proper grazing management practices.
The healthier the grass, the healthier the water, the healthier our animals are. I'm a 4th generation rancher. My kids and my nephews will hopefully be the 5th. Every generation has learned something and added to it. We're managing our grass to be more productive, and we're managing it in a way that makes our cows more efficient. We've gone to smaller fields and larger herds. We're impacting land in a shorter time, and it has longer to recover, and that just rolls on to making our business more profitable and more sustainable.
There are things that cattle producers can do to reduce their environmental impact, and that's keeping their grass healthy, making sure that their nutritional requirements of their animals are being met, keeping their vaccinations and whatnot up to date, so that each calf born ends up getting weaned and turning into beef. Places that have streams or water running through them, there's things that those producers can do to help maintain a healthy riparian habitat. And those things benefit the environment, obviously, but they also benefit the producers.
Our intention is to leave it better than we found it. I think it's important to recognize that it doesn't just happen. You keep learning, you keep collaborating, you keep talking, and you work with other people. You work with scientists and botanists, and I can't say enough about the people that we talk to.
The environmental impact of the beef produced in Canada is much smaller than it is in many other countries around the world and has very strong environmental benefits.
Producers should be really proud of how far they've come in terms of environmental impact and sustainability.
We love our cattle, we love our land, but if we don't do it in an effective manner, it's not profitable and sustainable.
I think it's important to help people recognize the importance of the land and the importance of this kind of a place that produces healthy food. This is where good food is raised.
Simply awesome information there. I'm tempted to say that in the next couple of weeks, we're probably going to show that segment again there. Some of the takeaways. 15% beef's environmental footprint is down in that study there that stopped off, I think it was 2011, that study concluded there from 1981. So 15%, that's the number that you probably need to remember. And some of the conversations we'll be having this year, you saw some of them there in terms of taking care of the soil. There are a number of conferences taking place around the region. One in Neilburg is coming up, and yeah, just be a part of it. And another conversation we'll be having is regenerative farming. That too we'll be getting into this year. Well, that's a wrap on this edition of Ag Life. I'm Gerard Lampow. Take care.